especially too for getting on and teaching us a little bit about Jamboard. Today, I think Tina's explained, and she sent out something earlier, that we're going to be looking at doing more weekly types of presentations in the afternoon, potentially 2 a week at different times, on technology tools, as well as the instructional tools that you're using, specifically related to technology. So overall, just thanks Randall for doing this, and I look forward to hearing more about Jamboard. I'm somewhat familiar with it, but I'm actually really not that familiar with it to the point that I think I'll learn a bit today too. And looking forward to hearing the questions from everybody, and hopefully this becomes a really good learning tool for everybody.
Great, thanks, Ralph. I want to ditto that, Randall. Thank you for volunteering to be the first kind of office hour to discuss an instructional technology tool to help us in this environment. As Ralph mentioned, right now we have weekly 1-hour sessions, both offered on Wednesdays and Thursdays right now. We do have a series of topics that we kind of brainstormed ourselves, but we also are going to use the second half of the webinar to kind of solicit some new ideas and get your feedback around what your needs are as well. So as I mentioned, the format of our webinars are going to include a 20 to 30 minute teach point around a specific topic. Randall today is going to talk about Jamboard and how to use Jamboard in an interactive way in the classroom to keep kids engaged. And then we're going to finish the webinar recording portion, and we will open it up for some more of an informal conversation around anything beyond just the teach point today, which is on Jamboard. If you do have questions while Randall is talking, by all means, the chat is open. I'm kind of monitoring the chat and seeing where there's appropriate times to kind of interject with Randall and have him take a pause. All right, so welcome, Randall. Thank you for doing this.
Yes, and hello, everyone. I hope everyone's doing well. Jamboard is a tool that I've used in the past, and I actually haven't came back to until now. With students and thinking of ways to make learning more interactive as if we were in the classroom. So today we're going to talk about Jamboard, just 101, the very basic things you need to know. It's very intuitive, you'll find. So if you are familiar with the Google ecosystem or platforms, it's very easy to transition into Jamboard. So just a little bit about myself. I'm a proud teacher at Kendall Elementary School, and I teach enhanced curriculum, which is majority project-based learning, media and arts. I do have a fine art background. I went to SUNY Purchase for my undergrad. We do a lot of technology integration, projects that are student-driven, that are CCSS aligned, in digital citizenship, coding, as well as STEAM and makerspace. And there's just some images here at the bottom. I am a product of Norwalk Public Schools. I am a senator. So if you are, sorry to all, did we lose half of them? So this is my community. I've always been here, and it's one of my goals to serve our students and be, that role model for our students and allow them in EC the freedom to create. So that's a little bit about me. So now let's get into Jamboard. So what is Jamboard? Actually, this past summer, we attended the ISTE conference in Philadelphia, and we attended a Google seminar, and they were showing Jamboard, which is actually a digital whiteboard. Very expensive, but the good thing about that is the software is available. And that software is what we have on our Google Suites that was made available to students and teachers as of this past weekend. And there's also a App Store and Google Play app, which offers some more features that we'll talk about. So I won't read to you, but if you can just quickly look over the little synopsis about what Jamboard is, and just to pull out some words, collaborative tool. You can scaffold lessons. If you're thinking of using some sort of manipulative that students are not able to use right now because we're not in a classroom setting, you can create and put some of those tools on the page for students to be able to work on. And I think of fractions, how if students are typing now, they're trying to do fractions, they have to use the /, and that's not always the easiest thing to explain. So at least with Jamboard, they can use the mouse and they can write and draw numbers. And that gives them a little bit of the classroom whiteboard feel. So we have a short agenda today. Like I said, Jamboard is very easy to use. Once you start, you'll see like, okay, you sort of get into the groove of it. So we're going to talk about the tools, the Jamboard app, which again, I said brings some other features that you do not have on a computer, how to insert images and content, the ways that you can share with students, and then using that with Google Meet as well. And then I have some examples that I made using the Phase 4 materials for elementary that we will share out at the end. So some ways that we can incorporate Jamboard into some of those activities. So how to access Jamboard? If you go to Google, number one, and someone mentioned ClassLink. I don't see it in ClassLink yet. I tried to add it, but it's not there. But I'm sure that's just a simple matter of just contacting Kathy or Ralph and seeing if that can be done. But you would go to Google, and again, that waffle, you're gonna select that waffle, and Jamboard is near the bottom. It may differ depending on what you have installed, but it is within there. And again, this is accessible to students as well as teachers. So the tools are pretty straightforward. So you have your pen here, which offers, a pen, a highlighter, or a marker, a brush. I always recommend that students use the highlighter because it gives you a thicker mark, whereas the pen can sometimes be a little fine. So if you're thinking of shading something in, again, I recommend the highlighter, and you can, play and see which one best suits what you're trying to work on. You have your eraser here. One of the downsides of the eraser is you can't change the size of it, which you can do in most tools, but we have this clear frame button up here. And one thing that you might want to mention to students as you're working collaboratively is they don't touch this, because if you do, it erases the entire screen. It wouldn't just erase the mark. So if I had this filled with, a worksheet or different things to use, it will erase everything. But you always have that handy dandy undo button in case that happens. So you do have your sticky notes, and one of the only ways that you can insert text is to use the sticky notes, and that's here, and it's this button, and I can type something, and then you can change the color as well. You can also make it transparent, and then, yep, there you go. And you can keep adding them as needed. And then in addition to that, we have the add images, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. It's going to add images that are tied to your Google or that you have installed or on your computer, so you can upload them as well. And then there's also this laser tool where if I'm presenting like now, you can highlight certain things that you want to talk about. So at the top here, we have our frame. So think of this as your thumbnail view of your slides. So within here, you can duplicate slides. I can move these around. I can add new slides. So this is where you're going to see your entire presentation. And again, you can go through here. If you wanted to add a new one, you can typically just keep hitting the arrow going to the right, and it adds it for you automatically. And Tina, if you can just let me know if something pops up that we can address immediately. All right.
Yeah,
so,
right now I am monitoring the chat, Randall. There's no one that has asked a question yet, but I want to encourage people, and you too, Randall, if there are any questions at any point, we'll take a pause, maybe a little bit into the session, just to make sure the speed is good and there aren't any questions, so that we can kind of synthesize what we're looking at. This is really exciting. I like it a lot.
Yes. So, and one of the more exciting things, and for all of us who have iPads, and I believe if you have a Google Tab 4 or something similar that has a stylus, that you can use these tools. So we have the assistant drawing tool. And what that means for number one, you have the pencil to print, meaning if I write text, it will transform it into printed text. Honestly, this isn't always the most reliable way that I've discovered to write on an iPad. There's times where it works perfectly, like it did for this hello, but there's times where it also treated each letter as a separate shape, and it just wasn't as good as you would want it to be. But there's
Randall,
also, yes.
I'm sorry. So one of the questions right now was about those slides and the drop down. As you're designing those slides, is there a place that it gets saved automatically to, like when in a library, so you can save it for later or go back and edit
Yes.
it, let's say?
So actually, let's just look at that now. I'm gonna leave out of this. So just like in Google Slides or Google Docs, if you hit on that icon, here is all of my slides. And just FYI, if you have a personal email that you've used Jamboard with, sometimes it may knock you back to that. So just make sure you're on NPS or you won't be able to access your files. So yes, these are all of my Jamboards that I've created. There's some student ones from another teacher that I've worked with who I'm in her Google Classroom with as well. But just like in Google, everything's saved automatically. So if I'm working on something and I exit it by accident, it's still there. And then again, I can just access it from my library. This is more so your thumbnail version to see what slides you have within this one Jamboard.
Oh, you froze. Sorry, Randall. You went in and out there for a minute on my end.
Okay.
I don't know if anybody else had a little glitch there. So one of the other questions too, so it seems like the slide decks are almost like saved in your Google Suite there, if you're in the actual application of Jamboard, right?
Yeah.
So one of the questions was about whether or not a student interacts with those slides, or is it only teacher directed?
So if a student comes within here, they are on it just as you are. So they're just like if you were in a Google Slide together or a Google Doc, you can't put limitations on what they can do within the document. So if they wanted, they could add a new slide, they could clear the frame, they could draw or color. So a lot of that has been with me at the beginning of these lessons, you know, setting the expectations, setting the objective, and even telling them as far as which tools that they will be using within that lesson. So if I did a Google Meet, and you'll see in a few seconds what I did with students to test this out, I told them they only need to use the selection tool. They didn't need to draw anything and they didn't need to erase. Teachers also have done lessons where they had students use, you know, the sticky note. And if there was a driving question in the center, they would even assign them, one of our fourth grade teachers, Ms. Dore, she assigned students colors for their sticky notes so that she knows who they are. Yes, so
Perfect.
students have full access to everything if you shared it with them.
Perfect. So there were a lot of questions about these assisted drawing tools. So I know you're going to probably go in more depth because we sidetracked you there for a minute.
Yes.
So just so you know, some of the questions were about accessing those tools. You know, where are they readily available? And I think you mentioned before that this is something that can be used on the iPads or a tablet as well.
Yes, so this feature is only available on iPads. I do not know, I'm pretty sure that it's on the Google Play Store, so it may be the same. But if you look here, I don't have the assistant drawing tool, but it would be at the bottom here. So on an iPad, you do see that option. Unfortunately, on a computer, it doesn't, but if you have students who possibly have iPads and they access your Jam on their iPad, they will have these tools. So there is something called Auto Draw, which is, I think of it as Pictionary. If you start drawing something, and it's a pretty wide library. Let me go back up. If you start drawing, and I did a sun here, it will find or match an image that's similar. And then if a student selects it, it will actually find that clip art that matches it. There's also an auto shape, and what you're looking at the bottom is I drew some shapes, and as you can see, it perfects them. And I even took it as far as to see if I can do some other drawings, such as characters or writing. And it does give a polygon of some sort. And again, those are only available on the iPad, and I believe on some of the Android devices, but it wouldn't be available, or it's not available on a desktop computer.
Okay. And what about if a teacher has a Google slide deck that they've already created? Can you import the slide
Or
deck
Google
from
Slide?
into? Yeah.
Yes, so we're actually going to talk about that
Okay.
next.
Perfect.
So
And then one more piece before you move on was about, and I think you might probably talk about it later, is the synchronization to maybe Google Classroom at all.
Yes, and that, yep, that's coming up as well.
Perfect.
So, and yeah, how to share, I think that's actually one of the agenda points. So yes, we'll get back to that as well. But just images, importing images, I've tried a few different ways to see if I can import certain things. And what I came across is that you can import any picture file that's a JPEG, which is just your typical standard picture file most of the time, a PNG file, which is a picture that has a transparent background, and then your GIF, which are your moving pictures. So if you see here, I have this car, which is a GIF that I imported. I have this dog here, which is a PNG. And for those who are not familiar with what that means, it means that the picture has no background. So if you're doing a worksheet where you require a different color, or if you're doing a grid where you don't want any surrounding background, you can always do, for example, I did dog PNG and this came up. As far as the Google slide, so this is actually a Google slide. So you cannot import an entire Google slide presentation, but you can export or download the slides as JPEGs and then import them into your Jamboard. So what I mean by that, and I'm going to show you. So here was my Google slide presentation. And to download it as a JPEG, I just go to File, Download, and then as you can see, there's different formats here, and I'm going to do the JPEG image. From then on, I'm going to, and if it saves in your drive, it'll be in your drive available. Oh, let me go back to show you. So if it was saved to my drive, and this is just if you were in slides or if you were in docs, so my drive, everything from my drive can be accessed here. If I have a picture file, because it only imports images, I could import that from here. I can also go to upload from my computer, and I can also drag images from my desktop into here. And it also works if you're using an iPad, you can look at images on your iPad as well. So I've done that, and then that's how I have in my Google slide here. You are limited to writing with only the sticky notes. So if you wanted to import writing of a different type, this is one of the ways I recommend doing that. So you create your slides and then you import them into Jam. Are there any questions coming up, Tina, that you see?
Nope, I went back. Only one of the questions was about students being able to use it independently without the teacher.
Yes, so students, just how they have access to Google Slides, Google Docs, it's in their waffle, it's in their grid. So they could create their own Jamboard. If they did, you could share, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes, but you can make templates for them and share with students and make a copy for each student in Google Classroom as you would with a Google Doc. But yes, they do have access to this without a teacher. So it's just another tool that they have in their waffle.
Great.
And then also screenshots, and then I'll show you what that looks like in a few minutes. One of the ways that I usually import images is to use screenshots. I'm just going to show you really quickly some different background options you have here. So we have grids, we have a darker grid, and then we have black and that navy blue. But yes, screenshots, and it depends on what type of device you use, but if you have an image that you're trying to capture, and for whatever reason, you cannot save it, you can do a screen capture. It differs depending on what computer you're using, but if you did a simple Google search, for example, for Mac computers, it's Command-Shift-3 or 4, and I believe for Windows, it's the Windows key and then Shift-S. But again, you could simply look that up, and then you can import whatever image you would like. I'm going to show you some examples later on from the Phase 4 materials, and I could have downloaded those things as a JPEG, but I just did a simple screen capture, and then I was able to pull them into the Jamboard. And then also, again, I'll mention Drive. If you have any images within Drive, you can import those images as well. All right, so sharing with students, and just very quickly, someone mentioned how to use it with Google Meet. So one of the great things about Zoom is that you do have a whiteboard that's available within Zoom. Google Meet does not yet have that feature that I have seen. So one thing that I have done is use Google Meet within my, use Jamboard within my Google Meet to do some interactive activities with students. So if you look at the icon here, I just did a quick puzzle and I drew this on my iPad, and I had students put these shapes together just to see how well they can collaborate. So each one of these things moving are different students. So, and it is in real time. So this was actually happening as I shared my screen within my Google Meet. If you have a Google Classroom, and I'm just going to show very quickly, and I'm sure many of us are already familiar with this, but if you go to your classroom and then you assign or create a lesson, and I'm just going to pick a random teacher that I'm a part of, let's see. So I'm going to create my lesson, and then first I'm going to, if I have a template or a worksheet that I want to use for students, I'm going to go to Jamboard, I'm going to create that template, and then I'm going to make, or a Google Classroom is going to make multiple copies for each student. So I'm going to add it from my drive, and usually it's going to be the most recent one. I'm just going to pick this one, and then from there I will do make a copy for each student. And so if I assign this to students, they all will have their own Jamboard that is connected to my classroom. So, and if you are familiar with Google Classroom, you know this, you can go in at any time and see if they have done any work or if they made any changes. So that is one way to share. And honestly, Google Classroom is the best way to share, because as we talk about the next way to share, which is, and if you see, I made a few copies of Jamboard because that's the only way that I have discovered. If you have students who do not have a Google Classroom, essentially what you have to do is, and if you can look over here, if I wanted to make a copy of this, the shape puzzle, I would essentially have to duplicate this as many times for as many students as I would need. Google Classroom does that for you, because as you make a copy for each student, it's just copying that same thing over and over and over again. But you would have to do this manually if you did not have a Google Classroom, and then share that link with students. And however you share, maybe it's email with parents, maybe it's Dojo, whatever way that you are communicating. Tina, I think do I see a lot of questions popping up?
Yeah, I was waiting for the right time to jump
All right.
in. So a couple of questions, and it's hard, I have to be honest, because I'm learning a lot about Jamboard too, and I'm listening and trying to manage the chat too. So the life of a webinar panelist.
You're doing great.
Yeah, thanks. So one of the questions was about being able to set the background to lock it so kids can't change the background.
The background of Jamboard?
Of the slide, yeah.
Yes. So again, I have not yet seen that feature. And if you think about Jamboard, it's essentially another Google platform. So if you think of Google Slides or Google Docs, I don't know of a way within those to give certain individuals access or not. What I've done is, if I had shared a Google Jam with students, and maybe I just made one copy and worked with a group of students, I allow them to edit, but once I am done, I usually just turn it off and make it private so that only I can access it. If I access it, I don't want students going back. So that's one of the only ways. But as far as within, and if someone knows different, within Google Slides or Docs or Jam, I don't know of a way to limit for certain people unless it's just a view only. So I haven't come across a way to do that.
All right, we could follow up or see if we could dig a little bit, answer that a little bit further. And then the next question is about being able to see students in real time. Like, for example, when you were moving around the different shapes on your on the example here, are you able to see which students are actually doing what as they're moving on the screen? Okay.
So, and thank you for bringing that up, because if you have, well, now, because I've done this before it was available to students, but if they are logged into their NPS Google account, you would change the settings so that it is only accessible for students within Norwalk Public Schools. And then if students try to access it, it's going to require them to log in. I'm just going to show you what that looks like very quickly. So again, I can change this. I want to make it so that only Norwalk Public Schools can, access the file, and then I can change this to editor view. For with students, this should be checked. That way, once they try to access it, it's going to require them to log in, and then you can actually see who's on the document. And if you look here, all those little icons moving around, if your mouse hovered over one of those, their name will pop up. If you had it on anyone with the link, and if you see it says no sign-in required, that's when you're going to get those anonymous animal figures, and you wouldn't be able to tell who would be who. So if you want to use this with students, I recommend that you check your settings and make sure it's on the Norwalk Public Schools. In Google Classroom, it does that automatically, I believe, because they have to access the classroom.
Yeah, perfect. And then is there a spot or a repository of sample kind of Jamboard activities that as models or models for use from other teachers in a spot somewhere?
Yes, so I actually created a few for K through 5 that I'm going to share with you. And at the end of this, Tina, Ralph, we can share out with everyone who attended. So I have taken some materials and created them. As far as a place, I spoke with teachers, or someone had a question yesterday. If maybe grade level teams want to create a Google Drive within their own school or a Google folder and import lessons that maybe a grade level could use. There's not something that exists like that already, such as Nearpod has, like that wide library. So it just would be user created materials that a school makes themselves.
Makes sense. And just one question from Danita asking about a lesson about editing a PDF. We actually have a video tutorial already in Google Classroom, in the district Google Classroom account. you might want to check out the classwork section of the district-wide Google Classroom account. We've been using that as a repository for additional trainings or videos that we've been doing. Randall mentioned Nearpod. There is a Nearpod tutorial in there as well for K5 and 612. You just have to log into those Google Classrooms and kind of look under the coursework section. We've been putting as many videos as we can get our hands on and uploading them there for everybody to access. One other question, Randall, from Jeff, is about how do you change the sizes of images or files?
Yes. So, let me click next there. So just as you would on a Google slide, you click on it, you have that selection box around it, and then you can just resize that way. You can also do that with the notes. You can resize them. As you type within the notes, the text does get smaller. So again, another way, if you wanted to add text of some sort, I recommend you either, doing a PowerPoint or a Google slide and then making that a picture file or doing a screenshot of that. But yes, you cannot resize the drawn writing, which I think on some others you can. So you just have to make sure that whenever you're writing, that it's the size you want, or you'll have to use that eraser tool, because again, if I click clear frame, it's going to erase the entire screen. So if you don't plan on doing that, then yeah, you just have to use that eraser tool. It's a little tedious, but that's the only one that I see as of now.
Perfect.
All right.
When we exit the webinar too, I'll put the codes for the K5 classroom and the 612 classroom so that everybody can get back in if they forgot or weren't able to access that back in March when we did it. So no problem. I got you covered. All right, Randall, keep going. Sorry.
All right, no problem. So I do have some examples that I made just to give, or get some brainstorms brewing or get some ideas flowing for how you can utilize this within your own classroom. So if you look here, this is a 5th grade exemplar that they have in phase 4. So essentially what I'm thinking is this is the student's canvas. This is where they can show their work. I have a middle schooler and a senior within my household, and a lot of the issues that they have is showing the teachers that they've done their work. And one of the things that they've always been instructed to is just, you take a picture of it, you send it in. So what Jamboard offers is just the freedom to create, the freedom to think, the freedom to move around. So this is the student's canvas, and all the tools that they would need to, respond to this exemplar are here. So this is my template. And what I would do I would go into Classroom and I would make a copy for each student. So each student will get their own worksheet such as this. So these files I imported within here. I actually went to, and let me show you this. Oh, that's important to know. So if you do a Google image search, you can search for any image within Google. I'm just gonna do pizza. And then from there, I can just bring that image into my Jam. And again, that could be, it's just a Google search, you bring it in here. So this is a JPEG. If I wanted nothing surrounding it, for example, this, I did a fraction, circle PNG, and then you'll get that shape as well. So again, this is 5th grade. They had a number of tools that they could use. Something also that I should mention is when it comes to the order of images within a page, the image that you insert first is going to be in the forest foreground, and any image that I enter after that would layer on top of that. For example, if I inserted this first and then this, it would always cover it if they were on top of each other. So since I wanted this to be in the background, I brought in this picture first, and then after that consecutively brought in images afterwards so that they wouldn't cover. Did that make any sense, Tina? I'm trying to...
Yeah. It did. I'm curious though, if you right click on that image, are there any other those editable options? Oh, not really.
Yeah, so the only way to edit that I've seen is that snowman there, and you can duplicate and delete. And once you do a right click, it just gives you the typical, right click computer commands.
Okay, so it doesn't give you a lot of the same editable access like if you were in Google Slides or something like formatting.
Yes.
So you have to be very mindful of that. Okay, that's good. Nope, no questions so far. That's good. Keep going, Randall.
All right, and let me see. So for 1st grade, and I think of, PSYOP or something related to students having the ability to move things around or cut things out. This was another worksheet that was in the, grade first grade, day 31 science, and day 34. There's another one back here where I took what was on the worksheet and I basically made the space for students to freely answer and respond. So again, with these highlighter tools here, I can change the color and I can actually color in these shapes. And again, if you assign this through your Google Classroom, if I was on right now and a student was doing this, I would actually see, you know, them coloring this in real time, just as I would with the Google Slide or a Google Doc. And
so if you had a worksheet, for example, because there's some questions about coming in about the inserting of a PDF or a sheet, a worksheet, for example. Can you show that one more time, Randall?
Yes.
Like how do you bring some of that inside? Yeah.
Yes, and I tried doing a PDF. It would not allow me to bring in a PDF. So the best way I would say is if you have a PowerPoint or if you're doing a Google Slide, to file and download that one file as a JPEG, which is just going to make it a picture. So once you have that picture, you can go to Jamboard, and then I'm going to click that add image icon again. And the first option it gives me is to upload it. So if this is saved on my computer, I can click there. It's going to go on my computer, and then I can import and open that image and bring it in. So if I had a PDF, I could convert that, and I believe you can, for the most part, convert it to a JPEG or take a screenshot of it, and then from there bring it into my my Jamboard. If it's saved into your Google Drive, I can go there as well, and then it's gonna, if there's any image on my Google Drive, it will be available or accessible through here. I can search for it, I can just scroll through or look and find it within my folders. Again, for share drive, if I have any share drives, if there's images within those drives as well, I could import them. I haven't seen any other file type besides a JPEG, a PNG, or a GIF file. So just FYI, and if anyone finds another way around that, please let me know, because I've been trying for many days now.
And the example that you gave with the first grade science activity, let's say, where they were dragging those clip pieces, it looks like they were, how did you kind of convert the worksheet that a student should have cut each piece of those out into the separate squares?
So, and this was a very tedious process, which is why I say one of the best tools that I use, or one of the most utilized tools that I use, is the screen capture feature on my computer. So I opened up the PDF so that the PDF was, you know, as large as it could be on my screen. And then I just did a screen capture and selected this individual box within this the PDF, and then just did it for every image, and then went here and dragged each one in to make this sheet. So yes, it can be tedious if you want to go as far as to do that. And I'm going to show you an even more tedious process that I did. But at the end of it, you have, you know, what would essentially be a worksheet in the classroom that students could simply do in a matter of minutes on Jamboard.
Randall, have you ever used the snipping tool? Yeah, Caitlin, it's my favorite tool. Caitlin mentioned about the snipping tool.
Yes, I've heard of it.
It's my favorite one. It's even faster than the other way that you mentioned before. The
screen capture. I've heard about it, but I'm usually set in, I'm like, okay, I know how to do that, I'll do it. But I actually, you know, I will look into that, because easier is always better.
Yeah, if you search, if you have at least I know on Microsoft, if you search, or even I think on the Chromebooks, if you search for snipping tool, a lot of times it just comes up in the menu, and then you could attach it to your, pin it to the bottom of your taskbar.
Yep.
And so every time you want to take a snip of whatever picture or part of a sheet that you want to convert to an actual picture, a JPEG, and it's so much easier just to drag around the frame of what you're looking at, and then it saves it right to your wherever location you want to save it to. Oh, Microsoft 10, it's called Snip and Save. Okay, cool. Yeah, same thing. Love it.
Right, and you know what? I have homework now. But in addition to that, so second grade, their day 31, 32, and I think I put a few in here, they had graphing. And if you looked at the example that I gave students before all of this, they actually used images. I believe there was one of a doll and a ice cream cone. So what I did was I used that Google image search, and I searched for like fish PNG, dog PNG, and resized these. So now students can make their graph by simply dragging these over.
Wow, I'm sure that took a little bit.
This was easy because once I made one, you can just
copied it.
simply duplicate it over and over again.
Mm-hmm. It's
And
cute.
then,
I like that. Good idea.
and then with our fourth graders, and when I taught fifth grade, this was one of the most getting students to understand like fractions and size and relative to other fractions. And you have those nice sheets that students can color and cut out, but then they lose pieces. So with this, and this was another tedious process because I blew this up and then I captured each one of these and resized them. But if students are doing math, now they have these strips here that they could use to compare. And this is one little spot for where they can do all their work. So, I mean, you can even make a resource, folder or section within your Google Classroom that has a few of these tools available for them to use as they are working as just an additional resource if they need one.
Cool.
And then let me go back. I have a kindergarten one. I see the thing blinking. Any questions coming up?
Yeah, I'm answering some of them directly as they arrive rather than, stopping you. So.
Yeah. And let me load. So I'm going to show you a kindergarten, and I'm sorry, a lot of students. So actually, one of our fourth grade teachers has been using Jamboard, and as you can see, she imported some Go Math and has students respond. Yeah. And once you populate your Google Classroom with Jamboards, they are going to come into your Jamboard. So just FYI, you want to change that setting to only owned by me. So this was a fourth grade example that I made where they would have to simply, and I used the note feature where they could drag these depending on what the correct place value is, and don't judge me, I just did that randomly. And then for kindergarten, go back to owned by me. Kindergarten, and that was one of, because I have taught kindergarten before, so we all know how important it is for students to have the ability to use manipulatives and move things around. And if you actually want to see their thinking, that is one way, a Jamboard, because you can always access it at a later date and then go back to those things. And this is loading kind of slow. So there's a tens frame here, and then they can move these red and yellow circles. And there's also a CDC word, not a CVC, I believe it's sight word or CVC word, where they had to sort the words. So I just typed these on these sticky notes here, and then students could move those.
Yeah, great ideas. You almost have to think backwards, right? What do you want the student work to look like at the end, and then think about what their thinking could be before, right?
So backwards planning, having an objective, I recommend that you always have, and I try to make a different color sticky note that's consistently the directions so that students know that that's the one that you read and not the one that you move around. And again, the greatest thing about this is that it is what you make it. So the possibilities are endless. I'm going to show you something else I did just as a little fun by me to see how I could push this to its limits. So I did do a puzzle, and you saw this a few minutes ago, where I had students work together to put it together. So I created that, and then there was a house here. And then as students were doing this, they actually had to move it around, and I could see them working together. And again, be mindful of the order in which you insert these is the order or the layer that they are in. And there was also this more complicated one. So I used the assistive drawing tool on my iPad to draw these shapes. It always blocks out to a polygon. So just FYI. And then this was that heart that you saw earlier.
This is an out of the box question because I'm looking at the shapes and it made me think about virtual manipulatives. Are there any ways to connect or bring in some outside like tools that are linked maybe from, so just you're saying going to get the images from Google versus maybe some of the virtual manipulative type of tools on a website or something. Okay. Yeah,
I recommend if you need anything, the best or the easiest way to do it would just do a simple Google search. If you need a PNG, you could, and this is a PNG file. So as you can see, there is no background. So if you wanted something like counters, do a quick Google search. If you did want to import things from the outside, you could upload those by doing the upload. But usually I just stick here unless I have to, or if there's something that I really need that's not within Google. It's something that's personal.
Got it.
All right, so that's all for today. Again, the limit is, possibilities are limitless. I'm planning a escape room for my 4th and 5th graders using this. So, I mean, I think that's the idea of Jamboard or any whiteboard tool. Like, you have the freedom to create, you have the freedom to manipulate, collaborate. You could assign a group of students to one Jamboard and have them work together. If you're doing a live lesson, you could use that instead of a PowerPoint so that you are able to draw freely. It can get a little tedious with the mouse, but if you have an iPad, you can share your screen on the iPad and draw as well on the Jamboard. So that's something to know. And yes, that's it for today. So if we have any questions, Tina, I'm ready if something else needs to be answered.
Yeah, just a couple more before we end the session, because I think they're very relevant to Jamboard and the tool here. Can you talk a little bit about any kind of use for data collection or being able to use this as an exit slip for student work?
Yes, and I think it's also important to know that Jamboard doesn't replace anything, meaning Google Slides works well with Google Slides, Docs works well with Docs. So this is not a replacement, more of like an addition to the family. So if you have a way to collect data that you're using already, such as Google Forms or Google Slides, and you know that's working, I would say stick to that. If there was a way that you wanted to see students thinking as far as problem solving, if they're doing something like you know, an exemplar, I would recommend this. If you share it with students, you can always access it later. So that's one way. If I assigned a lesson or I assigned a worksheet with Jamboard and I went back to it, you know, students answered questions using sticky notes, they drew, they wrote, and then that's a way to get data. So think of it as a virtual worksheet. You know, there's nothing that's going to come out in numbers, such as a Google form or like the Nearpod quizzes. What you're going to see is an actual worksheet of what students actually did on the page.
Right, and I think you mentioned before that if you actually converted or made a copy of this and pushed it out to every student through Google Classroom, then you could have them turn it in through Google Classroom, and then there's a student work sample from each student, which would be a great way of looking at some critical thinking and problem solving, at least in, of course, in the STEM areas. I'll just throw that in there. So that I really like that you use that functionality and how to integrate the two, because like you said, you know, a lot of these tools, they have really specific functionality that are unique to their own platform. And so the way it becomes more robust and engaging for kids is when we start merging them together, which is what you're doing right now today, Randall. This is great. So did you want to add anything else?
Yeah, just quick. Someone said, is it like, so yes, Jamboard is a smart board on the computer, but it is a little limited. The actual, and if you ever have time, just look up the actual Jamboard, the actual like device. It is amazing. It offers so much more. Maybe we can ask Ralph if that's possible, but it does offer a lot. But for the software, you are able it's basically images, sticky notes, and just the free draw. And you can use this live in Google Meet. If you schedule your Google Meet through your Google Calendar, you are able to add files. And Bradbury mentioned that in his last meeting, how to do that. But what I usually do is just copy the link and send it through the chat to students so that they can just click on it within the chat function, and then they can access it. And then I share my screen and I can see them populate it, and then we go from there. So I would just even maybe test it out with just a group of students, post a question, post a task, have them respond on a sticky note or draw a picture. And students really enjoyed it. I actually asked my 4th graders, you know, how do we feel about this? And they said, oh, yeah, we like it. So it does bring another layer of newness, you know, in this new normal that we all are facing.
Wonderful. Thanks, Randall. We're going to keep everybody stay on, and we're just going to stop the recording so we can post it later. Thanks, Randall. Great job.
You're welcome. Thank you.